Hi, it's Stephen from Sound of an Ocean Wave, and this video is a response to Lisa at Supportive Tarot. Her channel is one of the most recent ones that I've just subscribed to, and I really like her channel, and I've watched several of her videos, and in one of them she talked about her Touchstone decks. The decks that are her go-to decks that she has a particular connection with, and at various points have really been an important deck for her. So I thought I would do a response to that and share mine. The first deck that I want to show is the original Rider-Waite deck. This was really my first deck for tarot, and I've had it for some time now, even when I wasn't doing anything with tarot. I still got this in my possession from an earlier time when I dabbled a bit and then left it for a while. But this for a while was my one and only deck, and I've since trimmed and edged it. And now it's been given a new life with this modification, and it's a deck that I won't part with because of the time that it's been with me, and in that way it's the one that I've began to learn tarot with. So in that way it's really my introduction and true connection to the world of tarot. So that's why that's the first Touchstone deck, and I still like to get it out and use it now and again, particularly now that I've modified it, and it's a nice portable deck, and it's an important one for me, and it's familiar, and it's got the familiar Rider-Waite Smith images. It's like a trusty old friend, and yes, so it was the basic deck that I began with, and that's why it still has that important place in my tarot life. So that's that deck, and the next deck is one that I got as a different deck. I saw it in a shop somewhere as part of a kit, and that was the Easy Tarot kit. It came with this book, and the deck was the Gilded Tarot of Giro Marchetti, and was the first Giro Marchetti deck that I had. And yes, I did like this deck, and it was different to the original RWS deck that I've just showed you, but it was based enough on it I could recognise the connection with the system, and it just gave me a different set of images to relate to, and I quite like them and connected with them. Although I don't use this deck quite as much now as I used to. It has taken a bit of a back seat, and I'll explain why when I introduce the next deck. So really it's included. This deck is included because it's the first deck that wasn't the basic Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the sort of the Rider-Waite based deck, the first Rider-Waite based deck that I had. So that's why I've included it, because it was the first time that I deviated away from the original. But I'd put this deck in brackets because although I still have it in my collection, I don't really use it so much now, because towards the end of last year, when I really came back into working with tarot and wanting to really take it seriously and move forward with it, I continued with this original deck. Occasionally I would use this Gilded Tarot, but then I saw on Kelly from the Truth in Stories channel a walkthrough of another Giro Marchetti deck, the Legacy of the Divine Tarot. And obviously I was familiar with his artwork because of the Gilded Tarot, but somehow this was to me the another level to the Gilded Tarot. And when I watched Kelly's walkthrough, Kelly's walkthroughs of decks are amazing. She really goes into detail, she really explains things, and you know, says both the pros and the cons of a deck, and gives an honest insight. And even if she doesn't particularly like something, she will point out that, well, perhaps you might, but this is why you might not. So she gives a very well balanced viewpoint and an honest one. And you know, I have often gone to her channel to look for a walkthrough when I've been thinking, should I buy such and such a deck? And usually her walkthrough, if she's done one of that particular deck, usually confirms to me one way or the other, yes I should, or no, now I've seen that, I don't want it. But when I watched the walkthrough of this deck, it was an experience that I'd not had before, and particularly regarding a tower deck. And I still can't explain it to this day. And but there was an emotional reaction to this deck. It touched me deep within, and I'd almost got tears in my eyes because of the emotional impact of seeing this deck and the connection that I made with it. And I knew from that point that I'd got to have this deck. This was for me. And so I obtained it, and I love it. It's one of my favourite decks. I don't use it all the while because I like to give other decks some time. And for when I was getting used to one of the other decks that I shall mention, I think it's the next one. Yes, the next one I'm going to mention. I was getting to know that deck a bit more, so for a couple of months I didn't touch this deck, and then I think it was July, I was intending to work with a certain deck, try and find a certain deck to work with. I hadn't got one in mind, but I was looking for one, but while I was looking for one to use during July, I suddenly had this inner prompting to no, you don't need a new one, just get this back out, get the Legacy of Divine back out, and work with that for the month. And I did, and I got a lot from it. So there's still that connection there. it was either June or July, I can't remember which. But yes, I really really love this deck, and it's a special one to me, that I really connect with. So the next one is the Wild Unknown, and this was the deck that I put the Legacy of the Divine deck away for a bit, for a couple of months, while I got used to this deck. This deck features, because I've grown to like it, to really like it and connect with it, but it's, to me, a Touchstone deck because it was the first deck that was not Rider-Waite based. It's not a people deck, more animals, nature, so that was another deviation. It, as I say, it didn't follow the Rider-Waite Smith system, although occasionally there are some similarities, but not many. And also because it has the different numbering of strength and justice, because the Rider-Waite Smith deck moved the traditional allocation of strength and justice, and put strength at 8 and justice at 11, whereas in the traditional decks it had been justice at 8 and strength at 11, and this goes back to the more traditional, putting the strength at 11 rather than the 8. Justice is at 8. And for a while that put me off, because I was really used to working with the RWS system. But I eventually took the plunge, and it wasn't the issue that I thought it would be. You still read it the same. Yes, that was another step into yet another style of deck that I hadn't worked with before, and it's a really good deck, because it's given me some great readings. So that's that deck, the Wild Unknown. So the other tarot deck is one of the more recent ones that I've gotten. I think I started using this through August, and I'm still using it now in September. So that means that I was right about July being the one where I used the Legacy of the Divine through the month of July, because it was the one before Druidcraft. So yeah, the Druidcraft, and I have the big box version with the book. I've read some of it, and it's very good. And this particular deck, I really do connect with, and it's a great deck. And I think it's coming up side by side now with the Legacy of Divine. And the thing with this deck is that as I said in a previous video to this one about my modifications, I had to modify this deck. I had to trim it at the very least, because the cards were too small for the cards were too large for my small hands, and I couldn't shuffle them very well. But after I trimmed off the borders, they became a lot more manageable, and I can really work with this quite easily now. And as I haven't edged it or anything, that may be an option for the near future, I don't know. But this deck, again, it's into another style of deck, a more sort of pagan, druid Wicca type deck, getting more in touch with nature and the pagan tradition, which has always appealed to me. I've always been interested in sort of Celtic things. As far as I know, I don't have any connection to anything Celtic, sort of family-wise or anything. But for some reason, it's always been of interest to me, and that's why this particular deck really connects with me. And I've gotten some really good readings from this as well, and I'm currently using this for my daily draws. So I got this lovely bag to put the cards in, so I didn't have to keep getting them in and out of the box. I just keep the book in the box and store that away. This is more handy for me to use, particularly when I'm using it every day. So that's that. Any more tarot decks? Touchstone wise, an honourable mention will be the Deviant Moon Borderless, and the only reason it's an honourable mention and is not fully included yet is because it's a recent acquisition, and I'm still gradually working with it and connecting with it. So that process is still ongoing, and it may be over time that this will become a Touchstone deck. But it may be on its way, but it's not quite there yet. But watch this space. So that's tarot decks. I'll go Oracle now, because they are still decks that there's a couple of decks that I class as a Touchstone. The first Oracle really that I class as a Touchstone deck, Oracle deck, is the Psychic Tarot Oracle. I used this for quite some time, particularly with daily draws, with my earlier decks that I've shown you, and I really like this. I haven't used it for a while, so maybe I need to get this out again. And this has cards that include the chakras as well, that you can sometimes, when I did a daily draw, I would sort of pick like the third eye chakra card, and that would just prompt me to think about developing my intuition and third eye aspect of spirituality, etc. And it has all the chakras in there. So yeah, that's a good one. And as I say, I could do with getting that back out and having a go with that again. The other one I got was a companion to the Wild Unknown, which is the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Oracle deck. It's an animal deck, and I really like this deck. Again, I haven't used it for a while because I've been using other decks, but I've used this for quite a while in succession, for about a couple of months, and the images, the artwork is lovely, and there are different animals on, and even some mythic animals like phoenix and dragon and unicorn. They belong to this deck has a structure of the elements. Certain animals belong to the earth element, certain ones to fire and water and air, and then these more mythical type creatures like the unicorn belong to the spirit element, and have that particular circle there that shows you that it's part of the spirit element. So it has a kind of tarot type structure to it, and the guidebook is really good as well. Gives you a good meaning, and it also gives you sort of keywords for when this card is in balance. When you're in balance with this card, this is the keywords that you'll be experiencing. When you're out of balance, the keywords that will come with that. And then it also underneath says the something that you can do, probably to bring more of that into line positively. So there was like 3 elements at the bottom of keywords, and I really liked that because you could relate it more practically to your life. So that's a very good deck. And the final deck is the one I'm using at the moment with my daily draws, along with the Druidcraft Tarot, and that is the here we are, the Enchanted Map Oracle, and I am loving this deck. And it's got some beautiful imagery, and the themes and the meanings have really connected with me. This is the little guidebook, and it's a really good little guidebook, and it like gives you an initial sort of phrase, and then it has an upright meaning and a reverse meaning. So you can do reversals with this oracle, but like with tarot, I don't do reversals with tarot or with oracles. But if you wanted to, you could. And I really like this deck too. This is one of my favourite oracle decks. I don't have many oracle decks. I am looking for another one to go more with the Deviant Moon deck. But this one is becoming a very big favourite of mine. So those are my Touchstone decks. So I hope you found that interesting. I'd love to know what some of yours are, and as I say, if I was to do this in a year's time, maybe some of them would have changed and new ones would have come in instead. But I think this Legacy of Divine Tarot will always be in there, and maybe a couple of the others like Druidcraft. But who knows what the future holds. So there we go. That's the video response to Supportive Tarot's Touchstone decks video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and until the next time, take care everyone, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.